we're having a discussion today about what we define as the purpose of art, why we create art as visual artists, what kind of the point behind that is, and how we can use that for a purpose or for something. So there's a couple things that there's a big topic that we're going to cover today, but I want to make sure that we all have some clarity. Okay? We got people online, you can compare that, or you can be in class. I will be asking questions throughout the class today. So people online, you can either join in or answer in the chat, or you can just shout it out, and we'll be able to hear you because you're on the speaker. You may get an echo because I'm like, okay? So, let's get started. Without further ado, let's start our project. Let's start talking about it. First question, big question, biggest question of the day. What is the point of art? What is the purpose of art? Why do we as artists exist and create what we call art?
Are you listening, Emily? Sit up.
Why?
Emily, you're not here.
Why do we create? What's the point of it? Anyone? Any answers?
You need to listen to him. Don't fall asleep on him.
What is the point? People online? Any answers? To convey emotions in a complex and interesting way. That's one answer. To kind of express whatever emotion you're feeling. You gonna say something?
Money.
What?
Some money.
Money. And I've got to put food on the table somewhere, right? I make money doing art, well, sort of doing art. I make money teaching you guys how to do art. So yeah, sometimes you gotta get a paycheck. What else? What else is the point of art? What else is the purpose of art? Why are you in an art class? Why did you take this? You don't know, you just threw a dartboard and lined up visual arts one and you're like, yeah, that one, man. That's it. Is that actually how you did schedule?
Oh, really? Sort of.
Okay, so why did you pick visual arts? Thought it'd be interesting. To show your creativity and express yourself. You don't have to raise your hand, just throw stuff in there, I'll read it. Okay? Thought it'd be interesting. To express yourself, show some creativity. What do you create about it?
Creating stuff is free. I would do that when you just find something.
Okay? So kind of meeting that aesthetic purpose, so you don't have to spend money on decorations. So you have a very specific creative voice or creative eye that you're looking at. Anyone else online have an answer? What is the point of art? Why do we create art? There's no wrong answer. There's literally no wrong answer. Whatever you think your answer is, that's the right answer. Okay. So people online to actually say to convey emotions or to express yourself, which are both valid answers. Any answers valid. So have we all seen this painting before? Everybody's seen this painting before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Is
Every
that like
single
that
person in the
painting?
whole
Is that
entire world has
painting?
seen this painting.
What's a painting does that like?
Okay. I put a title on here, even though I definitely did not need to put the title on here. This is called Starry Night. Van Gogh painted this in 1889. Oh, I guessed it. I didn't remember what painting it was. And this is probably the second most well-known painting in the entire history of art. Being second only to what? Mona Lisa. Yeah. It's the only one everybody knows. Mona Lisa is, as soon as you say art, Mona Lisa pops into
Okay,
your
then we'll be right back.
But the other painting that pops into your is Starry Night. Now, it's kind of ironic that it's one of the most well-known paintings in the whole world, because Van Gogh died, committed suicide, penniless and poor, and never sold painting, except his brother Theo, who also killed himself. So, irony at its finest. But why do you think Van Gogh painted starting? What is the point of starting? What is the idea? Why do you think he painted this? Because he didn't paint this for money, because, well, he probably did, but he didn't sell it. So why would he paint this painting? Why? Again, the wrong answers. Why do you think he did? Well, what? Why do you think he did? Kind of show the point of view of this specific moment. Yeah, that's part of it. Any thoughts? No thoughts? That empty? Okay. All right. He could have been bored and just wanted to. I mean, Van Gogh painted like 1 million paintings. He was only active in this style for like 2.5, 3 years. So like the sunflowers and Starry Night and the wheat fields and all that, he painted all these in like 2 years. So he definitely wasn't bored because he was painting literally constantly. The only thing he knew how to do. He could do it. But I like the answer if he just wanted to kind of get his viewpoint. He wanted to show people the way he saw the world, which resulted in this very indicative style that we all know as Van Gogh. Okay, you can all probably recognize the Van Gogh painting yourself. Well, a later Van Gogh painting yourself. There's other stuff that you might not be able to do. Okay. Now, my favorite thing to look at or to talk about is art that creates a lot of controversy. Because nobody likes art that everybody likes. We all want to talk about art that creates a stir. It's provocative. Okay? But let's talk about this one. Now, regardless of your feelings about religion, this is an important piece of art to look at and think about. So, in the late 80s, well, I guess we still have it today. We have what's called the National Endowment for the Arts. The National Endowment for the Arts is a government program where the government pays artists to create art for what? You write up a grant request, you submit it to the NEA, and if they want to give you the grant, they give you the grant for the National Endowment for the Arts. Tons of films have been made this way. Tons of public art has been made this way. I think this was part of the New Deal back in the 30s that kind of got us out of depression. So artists still use the National Endowment for the Arts to create things. Now in the late 80s, Andre Serrano, a very prolific photographer, decided that he would write up a grant for the National Endowment for the Arts and submitted this photo. He created this photo as part of a series, and it caused a huge controversy. So, if you can kind of infer, this is a photo taken of a crucifix submerged in a jar of piss. Now, as you can imagine, we live in a very Christian country for whatever reason, and that caused a lot of controversy. Congress saw this photo and they went through it. Why do you think that happened? Why did everybody go crazy with this? Well, it was they interpreted it as very offensive.
Probably in their eyes, it was like disrespectful, so it's something they were doing.
They interpreted it as disrespectful, as offensive. Why else? What might be a way to think about this specifically? Think about where he got the money for. Why might this rub people the wrong way?
They felt that the government like kind of encouraged it.
So he got money from the government through the National Endowment for the Arts and created this. Now, in the Senate, people were using this, specifically this awful guy named Jesse Helms, used this specific photograph to make the argument that we should get rid of the National Endowment for the Arts because it was immoral. It was encouraging like Satanism or whatever he decided to say on the Senate floor. But Andre Serrano, after months of controversy, came out and said, well, you can't stop me because my First Amendment rights allow me to do this. I'm allowed. It's fine. This is legal. Because you as the government cannot censor whatever speech that I'm
Do you want to go
creating.
to Mrs. Wester's room?
Now, since he got the money from the government, they technically couldn't. Okay? So, he created a dialogue about censorship and about kind of the First Amendment rights and all of that, just by creating this very provocative image. Now, looking at this photograph, what kind of tones are coming across with this? What's the point? Just looking at this, what point are you getting from this?
I guess that Andre's wrong and we like Christ.
Okay, so maybe it's kind of anti-religious because it's a crucifix and a jar of piss. But that wasn't necessarily it didn't matter what was in the jar. It didn't matter what the photograph was of. This was about censorship. This was about art being allowed to be whatever it wanted to be. That's where Andre Serrano used art as his voice to express his stance on this position. Express his position on this. Okay. So he takes his photograph, he distributes his photograph, because that is his personal position. That is his personal stance. It's his voice that he is expressing. Okay? And many artists do this. Oop, I'm on the wrong thing. Alright. So Andre Serrano used this as a, quote, weapon of social reform. Because he did not want to kind of let the government dictate what he could and could not do. He did not want to rebel against that idea of censorship and really flex his First Amendment rights to the fullest extent. And he did. And he created a whole conversation about it. So Andre Serrano, with one photograph, well, it was a series, but one very provocative photograph, kind of changed the whole conversation about art in the United States. In the 80s. Now, this is my favorite piece of art in history. I've bounced around quite a lot. I've bounced around. I'm like, ooh, what's my favorite? What's my favorite? I'm not sure. I don't know. And after 28 years, I have settled on this. So, anybody tell me what this is? Has anybody seen this before? No? Great. I love that I get to introduce you. Can anybody tell me what this is? Guys in the room or online, what is this? It's a urinal. I ask guys because there's no urinals coming back.
Am I?
Please, probably for good reason.
But I have to say one more
I don't know what you
time.
do.
Your name, please.
That's a whole other issue, but whatever.
Okay.
It's a urinal.
Open your eyes and
Okay?
I know you're
So,
getting in your
back
mouth.
in the early 1900s,
Getting on.
I guess it still happens today, but it's a lot less common. It was a common practice. It's not. It is a urinal. It's not ripped out of the wall. It's very carefully taken. It was a very common practice back in the early 1900s to go to a gallery as an artist and go, hey, gallery, I'm going to pay you $50, whatever, to put my art in your gallery. They would go, okay. They would take the money and they would put your art on the wall and people would get to see it. So you paid the gallery for your space. Okay? That was the point. You walked up a gallery, you said, here's my money, hang this up. And I went, okay. Now, this French guy named Marcel Duchamp, back in 1970, took a false name, en route, and went to a gallery and said, "Hey gallery, here's my money. I would like to create some art. Or I would like to hang some art." The gallery went, "Okay," took his money, and he pulled out this mirror. And he went, "Okay, here you go. See, look,
To look at
it's a
the
fountain."
there.
And this gallery was like, "What? No, we're not putting that in our gallery. It's a urinal." And Marcel Duchamp went crazy. He's like, "What are you mean you're not going to put this in? I've been in my feet. How are you going to tell me what is and isn't art? How dare you? Who made you the authority on what is art?" Ah, he went crazy. He went to the newspapers, he wrote articles, he did interviews, he did op-eds in whatever papers he could. He went to other galleries and said, "This gallery owner is telling me what I can and can't call my own art, yada 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 yada," and went berserk in the press. This gallery got a lot of bad press. Oh man, this gallery got a lot of bad press, and it ended up giving Marcel Duchamp quite a lot of notoriety. Because now he's this guy that will come after you if you don't display what he wants to say is art. So, a photographer in New York, his name is Alfred Stieglitz, says, "You know what, Marcel? I will take your fountain." Takes the fountain, puts it in the 917 gallery, I think that's what it's called. And the rest is history. But what happened is that Marcel Duchamp changed the game forever. This is the piece of art that made a worldwide shockwave, saying, if you want it to be art, that's art. Who can tell you otherwise? Who is the authority that can say, no, that's not art? The answer is nobody. If you want to say, I made this stick is art, who can tell me otherwise? No one. Nobody can say. So Marcel Duchamp, with one, I'm pretty sure it was a prank at first, kind of changed the entire world's view of art at once. Because he made a really good point. How dare you tell me what is and isn't? Now that brings us to collage. Oh, wait, no, that's, aha, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That brings us to the point of the conversation where Marcel Duchamp says, art is not just for people, it's not just for the Michelangelos of the world, not just for the Leonardo da Vinci's of the world, not just for the Van Goghs of the world, it's for everybody. You can't gatekeep art, because art, by definition,
Fake me, I
is
want to try.
for whatever, whoever, and whatever we want it to be.
I'm not fake,
It's
but I don't know.
open, it's free.
You want to leave?
We've looked at this painting before.
Want to go there?
Anybody remember what anybody remember? Who remembers this painting? Anybody? What's that? Alright, this is a very, it's a very forgettable painting, I'm going to lie. This painting is called Interchange. Painted by Will de Kooning in, I don't know when he did it. But the point is, up until probably 2017, I think, this was the single most expensive painting ever sold. This painting sold for $300 million.
I think you talked about it from the beginning of the year.
What's up?
I think you talked about it from the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's right, I did. I talked about this during the watercolor project, where we were talking about non-objectivity, how non-objectivity is a valid form of art. We're kind of hitting that again, but Marcel Duchamp made this possible. So some people hate Marcel Duchamp because he made this possible. But I love it. Because now art can be whatever we want it to be. Art can be whatever it wants to be. And if you're lucky, and you have a name and you rub critics the right way, you're going to have Interchange that sells for $300 million. Which, Great, fantastic for you. Do that. Okay? Interesting. Now, this brings us to collage. Because before the fountain, when people tried to do collage back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, before 1917, people were brushed off. They were like, oh, why are you doing collage? This is like not what we're looking for. This is not how you do art. You can't call this art because you didn't create any of these images. You didn't paint these people that you're cutting up and pasting into your collage. So how can you call this art? But after the fountain controversy, people went, whatever I want to call art is art. Anything that I want to call art is art. And that's how collage sort of challenged that view of traditional art. So, everybody listen to the Beatles? Anyone? Anybody know of the Beatles? I'm hoping you do. I'll make sure my microphone's still on. Yeah, we're good. People at home, any of you listen to the Beatles? Give me a shout out, because I'm not on the Google. I can't see the chat right now, so I'm just saying yeah.
I don't know what else is them, but I know they are. Or they're moving.
Who does? Yeah, everyone loves people love the Beatles. Beatles are fun. This is one of their more well-known albums, Sgt. Pepper. Lonely Heart Club Band. Now, this album cover is just this. I use this because it's probably the most well-known collage that we're going to get. I can teach a whole lesson on this collage, but that's not really what's important right now. Because this collage, at first people loved it, but as they looked closer, they were like, hold on. I see what you're doing here, because they're putting Karl Marx in here, and H.G. Wells, and all these like very well-known socialists. And you're like, hold on. I see, you're trying to pull a tricky one on us. There are 61 people in here. We're not going to cover them. But, yeah. So this is probably one of the most well-known collages. And it kind of paved the way for a lot of collage artists to do their thing. We'll talk about some more in a minute. But what we have is a form that challenges our view of traditional art, and a form that can be used as a vehicle for social change, for a weapon of social reform. And then we have collage, and it becomes a vehicle for change. It becomes a way for anyone, any person who wants to do it, to put their voice up and take a stance on something that they might otherwise not be able to take a stance on. So it allows everybody to be part of the conversation. Collage breaks down that barrier. It says, oh, you can't draw? Great. Collage breaks that barrier down, lets everybody become a voice in any issue, any conversation that they want to be a part of, just through art. Okay? Now, my favorite collage artist, Barbara Kruger, took this idea and said, I want to be part of these conversations. I want to be anti-capitalist, anti-advertising, female empowerment, and pro-social consciousness. I want to take all these stances. So I want to strong-arm companies into doing the right thing. I want to strong-arm people into doing the right thing. She created a bunch of these collages that she scanned, and not scanned, I guess she photographed them, and put them into magazines, on billboards, in newspapers, everywhere, that were very against the world of advertising, the world of marketing, especially the world of advertising directed at women. And she very rightly, very correctly, interpreted that the advertising world in the 70s was a very toxic thing for many young women. They were getting unrealistic expectations. They were getting advice like, smoke a pack of cigarettes a day to be skinny, like crap like that. And everyone was like, yeah, that's great. Half a pack of cigarettes a day is safe for your baby. Like that kind of thing. I mean, it was the 70s. So we definitely do. So she creates tons of these. She's very prolific. And she publishes them in magazines, in newspapers, billboards, everywhere, to try to strong arm companies into changing their messaging. And it worked. It worked really well. Okay? Because companies didn't want to see their advertisements on a Barbara Kruger collage. So companies started changing the way they were advertising. They started advertising in a more ethical way. Slightly more ethical way. Because the threat of a Barbara Kruger publication using your company's advertisement was devastating. Now, Barbara Kruger can't paint. Well, maybe she can. But she's not known for painting, not known for drawing, not known for photography. She is only known for collage and her very, very indicative style. Okay? Now, this is probably her most well known. Does this look familiar to anybody? This style? The text in particular. Definitely the text. It looks like what? It does. Supreme took Barbara Kruger's visual style and they said, oh, look at this collage artist that is anti-capitalism, anti-consumerism. Let's steal her style. And they ripped it right up. It's the same font, it's the same everything. Same color red. So Barbara Kruger finds out, and she's like, are you kidding me? And she ended up, I think it was in like the mid-2000s, maybe early 2010s, launched a line of like clothing and stuff that uses her provocative style, because you can't tell Barbara Kruger to not use her style. And if Supreme tried to sue her on that, they would have lost so painfully. So they had to just sit down and take it. So Barbara Kruger launches this whole line of clothing and stuff that is pretty much directly targeted at Supreme, saying, hey, credit where credit's due. And they ended up formally kind of recognizing Barbara Kruger as the inventor of her style. Whether that, how public that ended up being, I don't specifically know. But she did strong arm this company into doing what she wants, just through the power of this voice. Okay? Now, let's look at some more traditional collage. Look at Romare Bearden. Romare Bearden is he was an African-American artist in the mid-60s, early 70s. Well, that's when he was big. That talked a lot about African-American life, culture, the Harlem Renaissance, which we will talk about in a different project. Spirituality, kind of that jazz improvisation. Now, pop quiz for everybody. I'm not your history teacher, but relevant to African American life. What was happening in the mid-60s? 1960s. 1860s is possible. What was that, Griffin? Civil rights. Civil rights movement. Mid-60s were that's the era of the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Act being passed in Congress. That's the era of Martin Luther King Jr., March on Washington, all of that. Okay? So a lot of African American artists in the 60s were taking this idea of African American life and culture, which was now in the forefront because of the boom of the Civil Rights Act, and creating art about that. Romare Bearden is one of them. So I think pretty sure he's a World War II veteran that starts creating collages based around his life and experience in the South, going to the South in the 40s, and in Harlem in the 60s and 70s. Okay? And he's a Vietnam vet. Specifically. Oh, we'll get one time. That's fine. Okay? So, this specific collage is called Prevalence of Ritual Baptism. Because he's depicting a river baptism that he experienced in North Carolina in a church that he went to on the river. They do baptisms in the river. That was their thing. That was something that they would do. So he's taking this very, very influential experience in his life, and he is representing it through collage. And since it's got this kind of cubist style to it, it's got this very Picasso-looking aesthetic to it, it will look. We'll try to figure out what's going on. And that's the point of art, is to get people to look. I don't know what it is. Okay? So he is representing these things, kind of looking at spirituality and how that influences African American culture, how that impacted him. And he's looking at these through that lens. Now, we will talk a little bit more. We will look at this again in a later project when we talk about the Harlem Renaissance. But he's also using this very jumpy style, this very like up and down, bubbly style that he's using in collage, to represent imagery that he experiences in Harlem when he moves out of South Carolina to New York, where he eventually died. So he's looking at the things that he sees, these snapshots of African American life in the 70s, and he's representing these in collage. Okay? Now, last one we're going to look at, Richard Hamilton. He was very similar in practice to Barbara Kruger, but visually very different. Richard Hamilton was very anti-consumerism, but he was in the middle of the pop art movement, which was like Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, all those guys. Chuck Close. So, in the 70s, he's taking images from quote-unquote modern magazines that show a quote-unquote modern life. He's saying, he's creating this like, this ironic, this satirical take on what the perfect quote-unquote modern home is according to these magazines.
Thank you.
And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you take a closer look at this collage, there's a bunch of real weird stuff that's going on here. Like the lollipop, which is very phallic in imagery, but that's a whole other story. Okay? So he's being very ironic about this. He's saying, ooh, if you buy all this stupid crap, your life is going to be perfect modern household. Yeah. And kind of having that anti-consumerist look at it. Okay? Now, all these artists have a voice, have a stance in a specific situation, a specific issue or subject. They're using art to communicate that idea. So, let's get to what everybody's waiting for. What is your job for this? Okay? What is your specific job? What am I expecting of you for this project? And that is to choose an issue that you feel is important to you. Now, this could be any scale you want it to be. This could be global scale, like climate change. This could be our country, like the myriad of things that are wrong right now that are happening in the country. This could be smaller, like state level, or county level, or school district level. Or, I mean, if you are not interested in any of that, maybe something that's happening in your house, like your brother's being a jerk, he's not doing the dishes he's supposed to. That's an issue you can have a stance on. Okay, so choose an issue. Then you're going to research that issue a little bit, do a little bit of backlog work, because it's important for us as artists to make sure we are well informed about anything that we are putting our voice into. And you're going to create a series of 3 collages that represent that issue. Okay? Now, the 3 collages, one is going to be using paper images, a la Romare Bearden or Richard Hamilton. One is going to be in paper using text, a la Barbara Kruger, or whatever, however you want to interpret that. One is going to be digital, using whatever composite images you want to use. We will discuss that, and I'll have a video on Classroom by Thursday that walks you through this whole process of composite images and how to use our free image compositor. Okay, so we have 3 collages: images, text, and digital. So, no matter where you're at, no matter if you are in class, at home, randomly virtual for a day, whatever, there is some part of this project that you will be able to work on. I suggest having a paper collage in class and a paper one at home, and you can kind of flex work that digital one, whether you're at home or not. Okay? So we will talk about that later. But before we get there, we need to research our issue. So, we do not have time. That's unfortunate. That is truly unfortunate. Actually, you know what I can do? What I can do? I can walk everybody through this. So people online, do me a favor, and you can open up Classroom and go to the new assignments posted on Classroom right now. Some of you did this already, so I'll make sure we get a chance. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Let's do it. That's fine. Okay? So, your job is to complete this document for whatever issue that you want to choose. So, think about what issue you want to use. Give me a short summary and why you're choosing. Why are you feeling that issue is important to you? When did that issue start being an issue? Or when was it revealed to be an issue? Some issues have been issues for the entirety of human history, and we are revealing it now. Are there any important people, like activists, that are supporting this issue and trying to make a change? Are there people on the other side of this issue? Are there people that are arguing against the change? And what is your stance? And then finally, I want you to think about how would you tackle this? That answer doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to make a lot of sense in the context of the world. But I want you to think about how would you personally tackle that issue. Okay? Then we'll create a collage. So as you're researching your issue, and we'll start this tomorrow, we will have all class tomorrow to research these. As you do your research, think about it. Okay? Alright, otherwise, let's get our stuff cleaned up. I'm going to spray everybody's desks. People at home, you are good to go, and I'll catch you later. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Yep, see you later.
Thank you. Good day.
Fine. Yep, see you later, everybody online. Let me stop this.